So, when's the last time you thought about file management and asset organization within KeyShot? I'm guessing never. Let's take a look at the benefits of having a good system in place. Then I'm going to share with you exactly how I like to set up custom libraries within KeyShot. This means that anytime I need to upgrade to a new version or reinstall KeyShot, I will never lose any assets or have to rebuild any libraries. And if you're into collaborating with others, I will show you how to let other people work off of a shared asset library within KeyShot. Sound good? Before we begin, I want to plug the KeyShot rendering roadmap. It's a document that summarizes the steps that I take to push my renderings a little bit further each time. Download it for free at willgibbons.com/roadmap or click the link below. I mean, it's free, so you might as well. So why bother worrying about file management within KeyShot? First off, it's easier and faster to find what you're looking for when you have a well-managed library. And let's face it, we all want to work faster. Second, it's an easy way to ensure that you never lose or delete any assets when upgrading or reinstalling KeyShot. And finally, if you freelance or work for various clients, it's a nice way to keep assets separated by client. First off, let's make sure you know where KeyShot is installed on your computer. Now, I use Windows 10, and so for Windows users, by default, KeyShot will be installed in the user's documents folder. If it's not there, then it's likely in the public documents folder. Now to find out, open up your file browser and navigate on the left-hand side and expand where it says This PC. Click on the C drive or wherever your operating system is installed on. Next, open the users folder and enter your user folder. Mine is called Will G, so I'll click on that one and enter the documents folder. Next, scroll down and open the folder that corresponds to your current version of KeyShot, in this case, KeyShot 10. Now, if you didn't find any KeyShot folders, try the following path: C drive, users, public documents. And if you're on a Mac, you should find KeyShot installed at the following location: library, application support, then KeyShot. So inside your KeyShot folder, you'll find a bunch of other folders, some of which are asset libraries. Things like backplates, colors, downloads, environments, materials, favorites, models, textures. They're all folders that contain files or assets that you use and are able to access within the KeyShot user interface. So when I say assets, I'm referring to actual files like individual texture images or color swatches or KeyShot materials. When you look in KeyShot at the libraries, you'll see the same folder structure and assets that you see in your file browser. While you technically can make changes to these KeyShot libraries within your Windows or Mac file browser, Luxion recommends importing, exporting, deleting, and renaming all the library assets and folders within the KeyShot user interface. So to import an asset, begin by navigating to the library, select the folder you want to import the asset into, then click the import button, which should be located under the search bar. That will open a file browser that you can use to navigate to and select the desired asset. The same process goes for exporting. Just select the item or folder you wish to export, and then right-click and choose Export. To rename an asset or folder, just right-click on it and choose Rename. Speaking of importing and exporting assets, let's touch on KSPs or KeyShot package files. When you want to save a KeyShot project, you can either save it as a .bip, sometimes called a BIP, or a .ksp. When you choose to save a BIP file, KeyShot does not gather and collect assets. This means when you open the BIP, KeyShot references the file path for any assets that were used in that project, and if no asset file paths have been changed since saving that BIP, then every asset should successfully load and you won't have any missing textures, backplates, materials, anything like that. When you save a KeyShot project as a KSP, KeyShot will collect all the assets used in that project, place them in a single folder, and compress it. The result is a KSP or a KeyShot package file. Whenever you open a KSP, you have to unpack its contents and tell KeyShot where to place them. Once all that's done, KeyShot will load all those assets into the file, ensuring that nothing is missing. This is the ideal workflow when archiving a project or sending a file to another computer or person. When opening a KSP, KeyShot will ask you where to unpack the assets to, and I strongly discourage choosing the option to import these assets. If you do this, KeyShot imports those assets into the existing default libraries, often resulting in duplicates as well as assets being added to your library that you may never use again. Over time, your libraries will become bloated and messy, and KeyShot may load more slowly. I recommend you unpack the contents of the KSP to a new folder on your desktop. I usually just name this folder temp, and then when I'm done working on that KeyShot file, I'll save it again as a KSP and just delete the temp folder from my desktop. So as you use KeyShot, you will undoubtedly create lots of custom assets. So where should you store these? I personally like to create my own set of libraries specifically for custom assets. This keeps everything I've ever made separate from the default KeyShot libraries. I then go a step further and save these libraries on a separate hard drive. Should the drive my operating system is on ever fail, I have my assets on a separate disk for safekeeping. Another benefit of this is that you can share these libraries with someone else if you want to. Most computers these days have at least 2 or 3 storage devices or hard drives, and the primary drive is typically where your operating system and program files are installed. Same with your KeyShot software. Now, a secondary storage drive often is a larger capacity and slower drive, since files being stored here are typically, they don't need to be accessed as often or frequently or quickly. Yeah, higher performance computers often have an additional scratch drive or disk. Now today, these are normally a fast solid state drive that doesn't have as much capacity, but is still very fast. I like to store my custom asset library on a scratch disk to reduce load time when launching KeyShot. I'll also mention that I have a custom folder that renderings and animations are saved to. This way, if I wipe out my KeyShot installation, I don't accidentally lose those renderings or animations. So here's a diagram of my current library configuration. You can see the default libraries on the C drive, my assets are stored on the D drive, and my renderings and animations are stored in a folder on my E drive, which is my bigger, slower, archival hard drive. Now you can create and name the folders of your custom libraries however you'd like, right in the file browser or on the desktop. And then once you're done with that, you can place them where you want them. Then all we have to do is tell KeyShot that these libraries exist. Then they'll be available in KeyShot's library asset browser. To do this, we'll go into KeyShot's preferences, next choose folders, and here you'll see a file path specified for each of these libraries. Now I don't recommend changing this file path. In most cases, you can load an additional library. To do this, click on the folder to the right of the file path. And in the example, you'll see I've already loaded a second texture library. To add a second library, just click the plus icon on the left and click the folder icon again to browse to your new asset library. By default, the read-only box is checked. I usually uncheck this. However, it's a good safety net to have if another person also has access to this library and you don't want them to be able to make changes to anything within it. And then click OK to finish. Continue this process to load additional libraries into KeyShot. When you're finished, click Save Changes and relaunch KeyShot. Depending on how large your asset libraries are, it may take some time to load the first time you relaunch KeyShot. That's because KeyShot is generating thumbnails for all of these assets. Once this is done though, KeyShot should launch like normal next time without the wait. All right, now what about collaborating or sharing libraries with somebody else? There are really 2 approaches to take here, either cloud-based or server-based. If I have 2 computers at home and a server, such as a NAS device, that I store my assets on, I would simply need to make sure that each KeyShot installation on each machine is configured to load the same asset library. This can be done by following the steps I just walked you through. Now, if you want to share assets with someone in, say, another building or across the world, you could use the cloud-based approach. You just need to make sure that your custom asset library is set up in a shared folder or a hot folder. For example, when using cloud syncing services such as Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud, anything like that, Anything you place inside a hot folder will automatically upload to a remote cloud server. That way, other people can configure a folder on their computer to automatically mirror the contents of the folder on the cloud server. This way, everyone has access to the same files at the same time. When a user makes a change to a file, this change is then pushed to all other users, ensuring that everyone is working on the latest version of each file. So I highly recommend, if you take this route, to be sure that local sync is enabled within whatever service you end up using. You want to make sure that you have access to these assets within the hot folder, even if you become disconnected from the internet. It'll also ensure that KeyShot loads quickly when loading the libraries. All right, there you have it. Another KeyShot tutorial in the can, although this one wasn't so much about rendering. And I know file management isn't the most exciting topic, but I've had a lot of questions about it. So I hope this helped fill in some gaps. Let me know if it did, if it didn't, whatever. And then also, I want to know, what tutorial do you think I should make next? Go ahead and comment that one down below. Until next time, you know the drill. Happy rendering.